I had a question about what inspired you to write Smoke, but I think you've answered that. All right, very good. Moving on. So, to what extent were you involved in the production?
They were very generous. They let me come in. They pulled me in the production meetings from the very beginning. I could have probably like flexed a little more control, but I really believe in allowing people their space and their job. It's like, okay, there's a reason you have this job and I don't, so you speak. Now, only when I felt like they were changing intentions or getting off target, then I would speak up, but otherwise, it was very generous. They were just very open and wanted me in the meetings and asked a lot of questions, and I was happy to answer them. And so from the very beginning, I mean, I didn't.
Very collaborative right from the beginning with the actors.
With the
And
actors
Richard.
and the designers, and in the casting process, again, it was ultimately Richard and Danielle who decided, but they allowed me to make suggestions or, you know, advocate for certain people. Yeah, but and we all discussed it. So it was very generous, and I know it doesn't always happen that way, but I really
So
appreciate
they were
it.
very liberal in letting you have a say as much as they felt they could go to that extent to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's a good experience working with Richard Aidan.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's very, very
Anything
generous.
that you would like him to correct in his directorial bent?
No, I think it's fine. We've had so many discussions back and forth that it's pretty okay.
Pretty satisfied.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is a Longhouse?
Longhouse it's gone through a process of evolution. It's the spiritual and cultural center of the Haudenosaunee. Once upon a time, well, I don't know how much it's once upon a time. We're sort of having schisms happening on the reses, but
You're having what?
little, little separations.
Oh.
But it was also the political powerhouse too. It was everything. I mean, they tell you the historical description that it would hold two families and the fire in the center. That's what it was way back. But it's now the meeting house for ceremony and things like that.
Are decisions made?
A lot of and a lot of decisions, a lot of conversations about what's going on the reservation, what's going on with people.
Do some people in the Longhouse have more powerful positions than others?
Theoretically, but it is how to explain it? It's very, very, very. It's less power. It's more the person who can articulate best.
Oh, can articulate best.
Yeah.
So it's not based on so much meritocracy or democracy.
It's very. Yeah, I would say it's very much democracy, as in. Sometimes it's all people speaking together, and then it's like, okay, huddle up, chat. Okay, so what's the consensus? No, I disagree, and we're renowned for everybody gets a chance to speak, but a lot of these things can last for days and days and days while they're deciding.
So I'm going to clarify something again, though, as for yourself, you can't participate in those discussions or decisions.
I can't, but I can be invited.
Well, you could be invited.
I could be invited, and I sort of don't put myself to be in the position to be invited. My sister has been invited several times. My sister, and it's funny because she's very, very the most obviously mixed of all of us, shall we say? She's blonde. She was the one that my grandfather said had the real medicine spirit in her type of thing, and so she's always been very respectful, quietly accepting and waiting to be asked versus fighting, and she's invited quite a bit, and she's very, very traditional in some respects, and everybody who knows her knows that, so they kind of take us and bring her along. She'll probably end up in there at some point. So.
Okay, thank you. The play is about, well, you answered this too, I think, in your way, because I think that our first discussion really addressed many of these questions. about identity and belonging and self-esteem. And this question was asked about how autobiographical this is, so you've pretty much answered that. It is a lot, and yet it isn't.
Not literal, yeah.
Not literal, right. So is there any message in your play that you intended or unconsciously happened because of writing Smoke?
I think I wanted the message to be really that this is who we are now. This is who we are, this sort of, these different groups of people, and just we have to find a way to make it work. But I also wanted it to clearly be a play that Indian people felt, well, my nation specifically, but Indian people could watch and feel advocated. You know, it's not mixed blood desperately validating themselves to fit in. It's like, no, I want it more to be, I want it to be a bit of a celebration of who we are in a way too. Because the traditional characters in my play are very proud and very, you know, I want them to have real honor in expressing who they are and what the great law means to them and their station in life. I want them to be, no, this is, claim it, you know, stake the claim, be proud of it, and stake that claim for themselves.
You see, that's a very emotional for you right now, right?
Yeah.
You're feeling that.
Yeah, I want
important.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important for me, and I hope for the play. I don't want them to be the bad guys. I want them to be, everybody is right, but nobody's completely right. But I don't want any, I like them having a forum to speak.
Where is the actual roundhouse physically?
The Longhouse?
The Longhouse.
It's on, they're on the reservations,
and
usually.
So that's not, and then where do you live?
I live in New York City.
Right, so how long you've not lived on the reservation for how long?
Well, I never lived full time. We would go on the weekends and stay at my grandfather's house.
Oh.
Yeah, my father lived there for 2 years. He was given permission to live for 2 years while they got on their feet, and then they had to leave because, you know, he's not native.
I see. So
so
you really can't live there unless you're native.
Unless, yeah.
Or you're invited to live there.
Yeah.
Right. I get that. That was helpful.
Yeah, but it's I mean, I go back, when I go back to visit the family, I also go to the res all the time.
You can, so right.
Yeah, I can always go there, but I just can't stay overnight. Or I stay overnight at my sister's house, but I just don't live there or anything. So.
I feel like that was a silly question I asked, but maybe not, because it really clarified for me what I guess I'm projecting into it and how I would feel about not being able to be there, and yet it's such an important part of my identity and part of my feeling about myself, so I could see where I could be pretty in conflict about that. But you're saying, claim it, this is how it is, and you can celebrate yourself and live with the way this is, because this is the way it is.
Because it is the way it is, and you know, if by claiming it you lessen the strength of the belief or impact the culture, I mean, that's the whole globalism argument, you know. It's wonderful to be able to communicate with people around the world and share ideas and thoughts, but you also start losing elements of yourself as well. And Mrs. Smoke gets that speech about, you know, we did trade, we learned their language, and then we started losing ours. And that's I grew up with hearing that. And the thing is, like, I could probably sort of, I am very happy in being what's the joke, 1 foot in each canoe, and just sort of bobbling along, because I don't want to lose anything, my mother's culture, and I certainly don't want to lose my father. Because, you know, my father's culture is awesome too, and he's a great guy, and I'm very proud of that. And wouldn't want to have to sacrifice any element of his culture just to fit in with my mother's. So, but, you know.
Well put.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about Connie. I was thinking about identity, but this is a psychological question about if she joined, would she really resolve her identity problems?
Absolutely not.
That's right. And why wouldn't she?
Just because she wouldn't be herself, you know, she would be forcing herself into a form that she believes she wants, but she's not really. It's part of the journey she takes through the trilogy. So.
I was thinking too, you don't know too much about Connie's character, not that you should. Sometimes I find that that's missing in some plays. Mm-hmm. Like, how did somebody get to where they are? What development, what was in nurture? I don't believe so much in nature, so much in forming people. It's more nurture, but what was in their life history that, because if you have somebody who's so is dependent psychologically on external affirmations, then no amount of external change in their life is going to really make any difference in their internal world. That's just my speaking as a psychoanalyst. Mm-hmm. However, I think there are changes that can happen in people's lives that can affect their feelings of self-esteem too. Right. Especially if you happen to be very poverty-stricken or in a very desperate, difficult situation, and somebody comes along and provides some basic needs that you have, it's certainly going to lift your feelings about yourself too. So,
absolutely, absolutely.